resources. To go.
Thank you. Can everyone at home hear me?
Yes. Hi.
Hi guys, how are we doing today? Good. We've got a really full house. So while I encourage everyone to actively participate and stop me and please ask questions as we go along, I do make mistakes. I use acronyms sometimes because I come from escrow and we're acronym queens that you guys might not know. So stop me and have me explain what I'm talking about. And those of you who are in the classroom watching today, please raise a hand. And please speak very clearly and as loud as you're comfortable with so that those of us that are watching at home can hear, okay? All right, so that being said, today we're gonna talk about how to get your buyer offer accepted in multiples. Obviously, price is always king, right? But there are other things that we can do. So I'm gonna teach you all of the tools and tricks that I have available to me, that I'm aware of. I am also going to talk to you about what conditional items make some of the things that you can do riskier than others and who you go to make those determinations. And obviously writing an offer with terms that are risky, you know, those decisions are to be made by your client and they should understand the risks. And, you know, you should probably get in writing that they understand these risks before you use some of these tactics. All right, so with that being said, we're going to talk about how we set ourselves up initially for success, okay? If at all possible, I want you to do everything within your power to actually see the listing you're writing an offer on. Your client will have needed to see the property. A listing agent or a seller is not going to take a client who hasn't seen the property very seriously, and you cannot do your best to write a safe and effective offer the best if you haven't seen the property. Also, you lose out on the opportunity to actually meet the listing agent face to face, which is really paramount if it, you know, if it's possible to do it all, in creating a good relationship with them, which goes a very long way in getting your offer accepted and getting information out of the listing agent that another agent might not get. Okay, you're going to make lots of friends in this business, whether you like them or not, if you're doing your job very well. So what does that mean? Okay, so we're going to see the property. Now, agents have different ideas and schools of thought about this, and I do coach my buyer clients before we see property. I like for my buyers to show enthusiasm about a property, okay? I don't hide that. We don't hide that at all. Why? Because the more excited and serious your buyers seem to the listing agent, you know, that's going to be remembered and conveyed to the sellers, and it's going to lead to a feeling of the possibility, you know, higher possibility for successful close. Okay, so I coach my clients not to embellish anything, but to they don't need to hide their enthusiasm. Okay, there are other agents who think being, you know, very closed off, you know, and not discussing things in front of the agent is a good thing, but it can work against you because it doesn't make the showing memorable. It doesn't make the buyers memorable. And so the listing agent loses the opportunity to ever convey to the sellers, these buyers were really excited, all given terms the same with another competing buyer. I like these buyers for you. They feel like our buyers. And believe me, we do it. We 100% do it. Okay, so they have to like the buyers. Okay, that doesn't mean like as far as a person. They have to like them as far as seriousness as buyers. They need to like you as an agent. So you're on time, you're courteous. Okay, you don't want to go over the top, but you want to flatter them. Great listing. You know, what can I do? Your clients want to write an offer. You know, so now you're going to call the listing agent up and you're going to get a lot of information from them. Okay. What we're going to do is we're going to, even though we're most likely going to get a counter offer, I do my absolute best to write my offers for successful acceptance. That's likely not going to happen, but I want to make it as clean and easy as possible. So I'm going to call the listing agent and I'm going to ask about what other offers they have. Okay. I'm going to ask, see if I can't get a price range out of them, you know, at least some sort of range. If I can't get the exact price of the highest offer, I'm going to find out when offers are due. I'm going to find out if there is any special requirement the listing agent has for submitting offers. Some of them very clearly say in the MLS, or once you speak to them, what kind of formatting they want, okay? Some of them want more aggressive types of loan approval. So we have pre-qualification, pre-approval letters. Nobody really knows what the difference between those two are. That's fine, okay? But some listing agents want to see what is called DU. DU stands for direct underwriting. What a DU is it's a higher level of approval where a loan professional has actually run the borrower or buyer, in this instance's application, through the system for the federally backed mortgage programs, okay? This requires a credit check. So we don't often do this because every time you pull a hard credit check, there is a little couple point ding to a buyer's credit score, right? And most of the time this doesn't make this is not a big problem, but if this happens repeatedly, it's going to be an issue, okay? If your client is right on the cusp of what qualifies them as A paper and B paper, that's going to cause an issue, right? So we don't like to just continuously do DU underwriting. So if your client is really not serious about a property, or you know that this property is already going to go way over maybe what your buyer's maximum is, you might want to talk to that listing agent and say, we are ready to provide DU, but can we wait until counter offer time? I'd hate to go for direct underwriting proof before we know if we can actually come to with the market being so crazy. Remember, we never want to leave the impression that we're not financially strong with the market being so crazy. If it's even at a level that my clients are comfortable with, okay? So, there are some ways around it, as long as you have very clear communication. What escrow company do you like, listing agent? What title company do you like? Does the seller need a lease back? Are there any special conditions I need to know about? Is there anything affecting the property? If it's a condo, are there any, pending dues increases, special assessments, litigation? Set yourself up for success. So, it's a conversation. And if before you call the listing agent, when you're getting prepared to write an offer, you should have pulled property records or vesting from a title rep if you could. This is important because you want to get the seller's name correct, okay? You want to get the seller's name correct. You want to make sure that someone who really knows what they're doing reviews your offer, because if you're missing things like the commonly missed things, marking who represents who under the agency confirmations, and don't worry, we'll look at this on the contract, or APN numbers, fields that are commonly left blank accidentally, or little common errors. You're telling listing agent, I don't know what I'm doing. And if all given terms are the same, and I've got 3 offers with exactly the same numbers and terms, and I've got one agent I know, like, and is seasoned and has a beautiful offer, and then I have, someone someone that knows what they're doing, but I don't know or don't like. And then I have someone who clearly doesn't know what they're doing, and I can look at your DRE number, you haven't been licensed for a long time, all given terms and price the same. Who do I want to work with? Who do I push the seller towards? Right? I push the seller towards the agent I think is going to be easiest to work with, that knows what they're doing, because I believe that they will exercise more control over their client, and I have a better chance for successful close of escrow and better negotiations. And this is my job as a listing agent, is to ensure I protect my seller's price and I get them the best terms, right? So do not give the listing agent any opportunity to think that you are not the rock star that you are, because you're here and you're learning these things. Okay, so always double check. I make mistakes myself. I sent out a counter offer for 1.9 million instead of 3.9 million last week. Why? Because I was rushing. And if I had just someone take a look at it, or taken a look at it a second time myself, I wouldn't have embarrassed myself with my client.
Did it go through with the 1.9 offer?
My client caught it before they signed it. So
It happens,
It happens, but it's embarrassing. I was in my car driving, and I have red leather interior in my car. And I was on the phone with him, and I told him, and it was the truth. My face was literally as red as the interior of my car. I felt hot. I was embarrassed. He was trying to give me an out. He's like, why is it this? Is it, we were selling 2 properties together. Is it because Is it because they wrote the offer together and you're thinking it's separate? I'm like, no, you don't need to give me an out. That's called user error. It's a complete typo on my end, but I appreciate you being so kind. So just a second set of eyes can make all the difference in the world. Ask the listing agent if they will accept and present letters to the seller. So discrimination law has made it optional and made it actually a term in a listing contract as to whether or not the seller wants to receive letters from the potential buyers, okay? If the
Kristen,
listing,
can I ask you a question? Hi, darling. I'm sorry. Quick question. I have a potential client that wants to get pre-qualified first, and they asked me for a name, like, names of several lenders so that, then we know what price points to go with. Can you put maybe in the chat box, some of the lenders that you work with and you're comfortable with, and I could, provide this information to the prospective buyers?
yeah, only I'm a bad agent and I only use one.
Me.
Is it 552? Hold on.
Thank you. I'm gonna mute myself again. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me see here. I haven't worked with a buyer myself in so long that I'm actually forgot my lender's phone number, which I know by heart for sure. Okay. This is my number one choice. If you go to my website, you will see the 3 people I endorse. That doesn't mean that they're the only good ones. If you look at the preferred lender page on lanative.homes, you will also see the other 2 lenders that I refer out when I need to refer out 3. But as you can see, I don't know their information by heart, but I know Jeff's. And Jeff is the person I work with when I need to pull these risky tricks because I trust him and he pulls it off and he will tell me the truth and he will explain the risk with me sometimes to the client, especially when it comes to appraisal, and we'll discuss that in some more detail. Okay, so we were talking about buyer letter to seller. So ask them if they'll be presenting these letters, okay? So federal discrimination law has not said it's not okay to do, but they are trying to discourage it. I myself like it. I like to see a buyer and their agent take the extra step. Again, this just leads to, we really want this property and we are probably going to close it. We have that effort tells me they are more likely to close, if they're putting in more effort to get it. Is that always the case? No, but generally speaking, those who put in effort are a little bit more serious. Let's see. What else? So when I submit my offers, I do it in one email. I write an actual email. I thank the listing agent for their time, for their insight. I may give them a small compliment. Again, I don't want to go over the top. I outline what it is I'm attaching. If there are any amazing terms in my offer, I will actually highlight them and I will place them in the email. Some agents want to receive one PDF file, which includes all the documentation you're submitting. So what are we submitting along with offer? We're submitting at a minimum proof of funds and pre-qualification, pre-approval, or DU, whatever it is, okay?
And FICO score.
No, FICO score is not typically required. You see that in a much lower end market.
For a lender, usually typically lenders will ask me for the FICO score. Well,
Then they don't know how to do their job. The lender should be speaking with the buyer directly about that. You shouldn't be involved in that conversation whatsoever. That's confidential information that we should not be providing. If a listing agent wants something like a FICO score, the buyer's lender will need to obtain permission from the buyer and can provide that information directly to the listing agent. But we should never be involved in that.
Proof of funds.
Proof of funds and proof of ability to obtain a loan, which can be pre-approval, pre-qualification, or direct underwriting.
Quick question. And so basically, because you can tell me otherwise, I'll listen to you.
Yeah.
But so the lender I work with, he asked me to tell my client to send proof of funds and for the pre-approval and then the FICO score.
You need to get a better lender who does their job for themselves.
I'll let him know.
Yeah.
I'll say Kristen said, all right.
Yeah, you shouldn't ever You shouldn't be involved with credit stuff. Even when you have to do a lease and you have to pull credit, it's better to use a third-party service like RentSpree. We really want to stay away from the liabilities of disclosing or providing any credit information to anyone. It's a big no-no as a real estate agent. So yes, unless a listing agent's asking for it, I don't touch it. As far as the lender is concerned, they need to get that information directly with the borrower, right? Directly with the borrower. And always better to have the lender speak directly with the borrower. They're the loan specialist. We're the real estate agent, right? That's not our job.
Oh,
Yeah.
right, and no, I apologize. I didn't mean to send it to, like, they would ask me, the lender, to tell my client to send it to them. But they would ask me to ask them to send it
Yeah, you need to get a lender who does their own job.
to them. Okay. Sure. Yeah,
Like you don't have enough to do already.
exactly.
I was just gonna say something else. Oh, so find out if they want one PDF or if they want several PDFs. Make sure those files are clearly named. Don't send them, an RPA or a pre-approval that's named ABC123 dot, PDF. Make it clear, make it easy. Why all of this is subconscious. I'm the best agent to work with. I know what I'm doing. This is going to close. I'm going to make this easy for you. It's going to be clear. It's going to be pleasant. This is going to be a positive experience, right? So all of this lends to that. Okay, yes. Oh, and I'm sorry, one second. Nazanin, you had a question?
Yes, please. Kristen, my buyer, she also got a gift letter because her down payment is not enough. Apparently, her lender told her that you can't add more money to your bank account because you're not going to be approved. And she's
Because the lender needs to source where those funds are. So you can get the gift letter, but you should also get a proof of funds from whoever is providing the gift.
the bank statement of the person who is going to give the, okay.
And the buyer's lender can help the borrower, the buyer, and whoever's gifting them funds write that letter. That should come from the lender. We should not be involved in writing that gift letter. Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Why? That's going to be an underwriting requirement. And so who better to give the actual language for, what's going to make approval for the underwriting department with a loan than the lender. If we write it, might not fit the bill, right? Again, not our job. And what do we want to do? We want to highly specialize and do the best we can so that there are no hiccups. When there's an underwriting hiccup, most underwriting review times are 2 to 3 days. There's a 2 to 3 day delay just because of, a few words that could have been better written by the person who is supposed to be writing that letter. Sorry, let me see here. Proof, oh, sorry, yes, Pinar.
Okay. When we are preparing the email, do we CC our client or?
No, your client should never be included in an email with the other agent. There is separation here. No one should ever have the other party's client's information, okay? We are not East Coast, we don't all sit down at the table together. And your East Coast clients will, a lot of clients in other parts of the country will think this is very weird. That is what we do here. There is no commingling of buyers and sellers or agents and your clients. Now, will the other agent meet your client? If they're a good agent, they'll be at inspections 100%. They'll be at the final walkthrough 100%. Buyer and seller should never be in the same room. Okay, maybe if it was an extra pleasant close and they both want that after all contingencies are removed during the final walkthrough, or maybe we can pass some contact information between the two parties after close, but really shouldn't be any contact prior to all contingencies being lifted, and even that is very rare. Okay. Proof of funds. Okay, so proof of funds. A lot of people are very veiled about their finances. Okay, this is problematic because why? Money. Oh, showing proof of a lot of money makes a seller feel very comfortable in going with your offer, right? Sometimes we don't have the ability to show a lot of money, but when we do, I don't think we need to show, like $100 million, even if they have it. I don't think we need to show that. But does it hurt to show more money than you need to in proof of funds? Absolutely not. Exactly the opposite. Solid buyer, right? If I see someone who, down to $1,000 has what's necessary in the account they've shown me, for their down payment and closing costs. It doesn't look as strong to me, even though maybe they have more money. So sometimes I might supplement additional bank statements to show more money than I need to. It doesn't look as good to me as someone who's shown me $500,000, you know, in one account. It just doesn't look as good. Now, all things given, you know, maybe that doesn't end up being the deciding factor, but what if it was? So I encourage my clients, it's totally fine. We can absolutely and should show them more money than we need to if you've got it. If your client's not comfortable, they can get a letter from their banker stating that they have in excess, you know, of a certain amount, you know, on deposit with them. Okay. For those of you with clients who don't want to give you a proof of funds, it is not going to fly in this market. Okay. No seller is going to tie their property up with someone who has not shown that they absolutely have the financial ability to pay. All right. Was there another question somewhere? No. So now that I have all my prep work done, I'm going to be writing my offer. So I'm going to pull up a copy of the residential purchase agreement. Now, those of you at home, bear with me while I pull it up. I'll share the screen as soon as I have the document up. Yay. Earnest money deposit received on someone I didn't think was going to perform. Yay. Thank you.
I'm just kidding.
89,000 or something like that. Our internet has been slow last couple days, huh? Last week I had one day where I actually walked to the other side of the office because it's taking like 20 minutes to upload photos on a listing I was putting on the MLS.
In the meantime, I'm sort of talking to ask one more question.
Yeah.
For the proof of funds, if the client insists that after he receives a pre-approval letter, if he insists that he wants to liquidate his stocks and things when.
Even shown investment account balance, most agents would take that as a valid proof of funds.
Okay.
Yeah, except for my dad, who should not be selling real estate anymore. Don't tell him I said that, he would kill me. He told me he got an offer for like 100,000 higher than anyone else, but he didn't, told the seller not to even look at it because they showed Netflix stock account. And I was like, oh, Dad, oh, Dad, you're lucky I'm not on the ethics committee anymore. Yeah, investment account is okay.
Christen,
Yes,
do you do stocks like crypto?
a little bit. I don't know as much about it as I'd like to
Yeah,
because I'm a real estate geek.
for sure.
This is what I know. And I'm super financially conservative.
That you blow is conservative.
You don't know what I make.
Oh.
And come on, I used to work really high end.
Enjoy it, no, of course.
Let's see here. All right. I'm going to share screen now. All right, so those of you at home, I will not be, I have to do share screen and I want to make this larger, so I won't see chat box or anything like that. And everybody knows I hate chat box anyways. If you have a question, let me know. I am not looking at chat box. All right, it's bigger. Okay, can everyone at home see disclosure regarding real estate agency relationship?
Yes.
I'm going to ignore all of this. We do briefly review in our PA class and just skip to the residential purchase agreement. Bear with me, just like you, I'm still acclimating to the new format of the residential purchase agreement. So things won't be in the places that I am accustomed to them being for my little tips and tricks. And some of them have actually been taken out of the contract altogether. So I'm gonna figure out how I would like to present those moving forward on the new contract as we go through the class. All right, so you really want to make sure you have buyer name correct, property address correct, okay? Don't leave any of these blank, okay? Most importantly here, very commonly missed field, assessor parcel number, APN number, okay? This is on the MLS, this is on property records. You can get this from any title person. This is a much stronger identifier of a property to escrow and title. It's just something that's missed. Don't miss it, okay? If you miss it, that's an error, and you know, depending upon the personality of the listing agent and the experience level, that can work against you. Second most common mistake I see in a contract is that confirmation is not completed. Okay, so you need to write in the seller's brokerage firm, buyer's brokerage firm, and you need to indicate and license number for their brokerage and for the agent, the sales agent, okay? And indicate whether they represent the seller, the buyer, or both, okay? All right. Purchase price obviously is king. Do your best, okay? Your best to write a good, solid, competitive offer. We don't all get to control our clients and how much they want to offer. So very important that you discuss with the listing agent what they intend to do with their multiple offers. Do they intend to counter everyone that has, you know, offered anything, a minimum amount? A lot of agents will say anyone who came in at asking or higher will counter. Some agents receive 30 offers and they only want to counter, you know, the 10 best. Find out what their plan is, because what do you want if you can't get an acceptance? Yeah, you want a counter offer. If you don't get a counter offer, you're dead. No more opportunity. Dead in the water. Okay, so we want that counter offer. Sometimes your buyer will not listen to you. It happens more often than I'd like it to. Sometimes I'll get a counter even though I don't deserve one, just by pleading and letting that listing agent know my clients can come up. When I get your counter offer, they're going to get a hard dose of reality, okay? Because you're going to probably have a purchase price number or higher on there, indicating that is close to or what you have in hand. But my clients can come up. Please give me a counter offer. Yeah. Please give me a counter offer. So that, you know, that has worked for me a couple of times. Will they always do it? No. But when you have no other options, you need to ask. I don't ask until I have an indication I'm not going to receive one. But I also pass along to my buyers the information I have about what the listing agent intends to do with their received offers. You know, counter a few, counter some that meet certain criteria, accept the best. You know, like there's a property, we have a buyer, one of my team agents has a buyer who wants to write an offer. And in the MLS, the English is not very good. And in the MLS, it says, you know, that the seller is going to select the highest and best offer. So I called him up to make sure that was the case. And it actually sounds like he's going to counter, you know, a handful of the best and highest offers. So my advice to my clients in that instance will be to be great, but maybe not the absolute best. Whereas if what the MLS said was actually true, I would say, bring every bit we have right now, right? So my strategy and what I'm going to do is going to be a little bit different. Now, don't be surprised if what the listing agent tells you turns out to be different sometimes than what actually happens. And how can we find this out? Only by being consistent and checking in with them. And some of them are just shitty agents, don't care, and they're not going to bother telling us. Okay, but you'll never know unless you actually stayed in communication. You don't submit an offer, get confirmation of receipt, and then just sit there. No, I want you to have some sort of minimal, non-invasive, non-annoying outreach to the listing agent every day until you get a counter back. Unless they're like, no, we're not even looking at things until 3 days from now because the seller's out of town. Even then that morning, you know, good morning. We are very excited to, you know, hear back from you. Has anything changed? Right? Okay. Yes.
If they say, for example, if you come with a price lower than 1.2, I won't even counter offer. So if they're trying to raise the price, should we leave it or should we just go with our 1.15, for example?
if I can't get my client up, so the question in the classroom is if listing agent says, don't even bother writing an offer unless it's above 1.2. Do I leave it alone or do I write the offer anyways if my client insists on writing it lower? Who do I work for? My client. So what do?
Right.
I write it. It's an exercise in what? Training your client. That what you say is actually going to happen. You do know what you're talking about and maybe they'll listen to you next time. So yes, you write it. If nothing else, you'll get better at writing your purchase contracts, faster at it. Set up some templates. Good tip in this market. Set up buyer offer templates for buyers, especially in lower price ranges where it's more likely you're going to have to write tons of offers. I had some clients, I think I wrote like upwards of 15 offers for last year. After offer number 4, where they didn't listen to me at all, I just put a template together. So all I had to do was pop in the address specific info, agent, listing agent info and give it a glance over to make sure there were no weird terms I needed to alter, right? Save yourself some time. Learn how to build a template in car forms and zip forms for a buyer offer. You can do one for yourself for buyer offer. And then if you have buyers you're continuously writing for, you might want to set up a template just for that buyer. Okay. Let's see here. All right, so if you have an all cash offer and you check this box, and I wish you all tons of all cash offers. If you write an all cash offer, automatically later in the contract, there's no place for you to fill out the section for loan contingency. Why? There is no loan. Also, because there's no associated contingency, that's just never a part of our transaction. It's never a term in our transaction. One of the things I like to do if I'm lifting any contingency, though it's indicated that there's no contingency in the contract, so technically I do not need this document, it stands out and it is bold, I still issue a contingency removal form, and it is the very first document I put in my package, the very first attachment, so that the listing agent sees that first. Hopefully when they print it out, it comes in order. Their client sees it first. So if I have any contingencies lifted with my offer, though a contingency removal form is completely redundant and unnecessary, I think it makes your offer look sexy. Okay, makes it look attractive, makes it look strong. This is just a reiteration, a big bold neon sign. Hopefully my offer is better than everybody else's. My offer is special. So little tip, not necessary. If you forget it, okay, but why wouldn't you want that? Close of escrow. So depending upon what a seller's need is, your close of escrow could affect how desirable your offer is. So if they want a longer escrow or a lease back, this number on the higher side could be more attractive. If it's a vacant and they are good to go and want to close, lower is better. Okay, if you're going to try to do anything less than 30 days and your buyer is purchasing with a loan, who do you need to run shortening it below 30 days by? Lender, right? Not just the buyer, also the lender. Yeah, can the lender actually do it in less than 30 days? Most lenders can't do it in less than somewhere in the 21 to 25 day range. And that's with easy standard W-2 income buyers or buyers who already have direct underwriting approval. Okay.
How many days would you normally put in this box?
Around 30 is the standard. Lower or higher is better depending upon what seller wants and needs. And lower can only be done if lender says they're able to do so. Okay, initial deposit amount. That's industry standard 3%. Can you offer a higher initial deposit? 100%. And this could make the buyer offer look a little bit more attractive. Why? What does this number represent? Yeah, the leverage. So this is potentially what a buyer is risking in an escrow. When is this money up for grabs? This money is only available to the seller in the case that the buyer lifts every single contingency that they have and yet fails to close escrow. Even then, even though the way the law is written, it says this is technically the seller's money if they fight for it. It's not always that cut and dry. There has to be mutual written instruction. Both buyer and seller have every motivation in the world to cooperate in this instance. It's not very often I've seen this twice in my entire career, even as through escrow where I see hundreds of transactions a month, twice in my career where a buyer did this. And once where the buyer just coughed up the deposit without a fight because they were a decent person and they did just kind of, life plans just changed. And the second time, seller still wanted to sell and sell quickly. Buyer was very litigious. They just agreed to split it. Buyer said, seller, I know I'm gonna lose this if if this becomes a court matter, a legal matter, but I don't wanna pay it to you. And my boyfriend's an attorney and I have free legal services built in, so I will fight this. And seller really needed to close for tax purposes before end of year. So unbeknownst to the buyer, and of course, yay me, dual representation in this one, which I hate to begin with. I'm representing both sides. I stayed out of it. I was very happy to see that happen, but they accepted half of the money. So I don't think it's super risky for a buyer to increase their initial deposit because there are so many contingencies that need to be lifted before this money is actually potentially up for risk. Okay. Increased deposit. So an increased deposit should be, to be attractive, submitted with par form DID, which is written right here. DID basically says this additional dollar amount is or is not also subject to the same accessibility by the seller in the case of it's making it like the initial deposit, where it's actually collateral the seller could go after. Okay, so it indicates whether or not it can become, tangible collateral. Okay, an increased deposit, the way our contract is written now, is so much better. Okay, although it's still not perfect. It used to say at a date, a finite date, which I didn't like using for increased deposit. I liked to say my buyer would provide an increased deposit, at the time that they lifted the physical inspection contingency, or the buyer investigation contingency. Okay, and the reason for that is because I can't foresee when we're going to be done with inspections, if we need secondary inspections, if there's tricky stuff we need to figure out. And, if the date that the buyer is supposed to provide an increased deposit comes before that time, maybe it's an exercise in futility, right? Maybe that's a risky move for my buyers. Why should we put up more money that can potentially be held hostage if we haven't gotten through some big event like the physical inspection contingency? So now, the way it's written, it says, upon removal of all contingencies. Well, all contingencies is generally less than a week or about a week or so before close, right? Maybe a little bit sooner. But so that doesn't make an offer look a lot more attractive using this term, right? So I usually make it earlier in the transaction, and the first big contingency typically lifted is that buyer investigation or physical. Okay, physical is just a small part of the investigation branch of contingency. Okay, and you can individually lift portions of the investigation contingency, or you can lift the whole investigation contingency. And the investigation contingency, and we'll talk more about this in the addendums. I have a class at the end of the month that talks about counteroffers, addendums, things that modify terms or come later in the process of escrow. I've totally forgotten about what I'm talking about. Oh, contingency removal and investigation contingency. Investigation contingency consists of like prelim, if there's an HOA, reviewing HOA docs. So it's not just seller disclosures. It's like everything that the buyer is supposed to receive or receive from the seller, or reports they're supposed to receive from third parties, and their actual physical investigation, which is inspections, right? So those are all branches within that investigation contingency. So on contingency removal, you can lift that whole branch, or you can lift the little fingers off of that branch, right? Which if you don't have HOA docs, you're not going to lift the whole investigation contingency, right? But you could lift the physical contingency portion of that. Okay, so loan amount. I'm going to try to talk about this in a way that doesn't get me in trouble while I'm on camera. So Sellers and agents like to see a large down payment. They think that it, is correlated to a borrower's financial ability. That is not always the case, particularly, very financially savvy people, when money is cheap to borrow, like it is now, want to borrow as much money as possible and put down as little liquid cash. Why? Their liquid cash money can be invested to make them money. And if they make a higher return on it than whatever percentage their interest rate is, that's a good financial move for them. How do I reconcile this? If a borrower who could put a ton down wants to put 10% down because they have great credit, they can get that loan, and yet it's not perceived as strong by the listing agent. Let me see, how do I word this? Whatever you write in here can be altered without technically anyone knowing about it or approving it through the course of escrow. And by the time anyone finds out that the loan terms you wrote into a contract have changed, I'm getting better at talking about this stuff, have changed, it's because they're issuing what is called a lender rate and term amendment. Okay, escrow is issuing a lender rate and term amendment, which talks about the new loan terms. Nobody fucking cares because they're getting loan docs if that amendment's coming out. Everyone's happy. It's a done deal. I don't care how much money you're putting down anymore because I know we're closing, right? So by the time anyone sees anything like that, nobody cares. I'm going to leave you to your own devices to decide what that means for you as far as what you can write in on terms, okay? With the reminder that the more it appears contractually that your buyer is putting down, perhaps the stronger the offer may be perceived. All right, let's see.
Timing of the balance of down payments.
Timing of the balance of down payment? It goes with the offer being delivered to the listing agent. Oh, you mean at close? It's generally around the time loan documents are issued, because the escrow company, the question in the office here is, when does a buyer make the balance of their down payment funds? After loan documents are issued, escrow will work up numbers. They'll have a much stronger idea of what the actual date of closing will be. They work everything down to a per diem rate, including property taxes, insurance, all of these things. Sometimes a seller has prepaid fees. So every cent is down to the day at the time we close. The only time we have a very strong indication of what all the fees are and what our actual close date is plausible to be is when escrow receives loan documents. So within a very short time of escrow receiving loan documents, then the buyer would receive an estimated closing statement, usually along with their loan document package to sign, that indicates how much they need to send to escrow. And escrow will always overestimate a little bit. So should be a few days prior to close. And escrow is basically requesting those funds around the time buyers are sending loan documents. Additional finance terms. So sometimes I have a buyer who can purchase cash, but may choose to purchase with a loan. These are generally my very high net worth clients or developer buyers who their cash flow fluctuates dramatically day to day, depending upon, what is going on with their acquisitions or their sales. So I'm not sure what we're going to use, but I do have the proof of funds to show that we can buy cash. And I want the strength of my offer being perceived as cash. So if that is the case, and my buyers truly mean this, I will write the offer as all cash, but under additional financing terms, and you'll want to copy down this language if you don't already have it, is that buyer reserves the right to obtain contingency-free financing at their sole discretion. Buyer reserves the right to obtain contingency-free financing at their sole discretion. And what does this mean? It means that the seller and escrow need to cooperate with the buyer's loan. However, they have no contingency protection in the case that they fail to obtain financing. They must still proceed with the sale as a cash purchase at that point. We're doing an either or, but you cannot have the protections of loan if you're doing either or. And what does that mean? It means our proof of funds has to exceed the purchase price, right? Means I have to show a proof of funds for purchase price plus closing costs. That is non-negotiable, or else this clause makes 0 sense. Okay. We've already talked about making sure proof of funds, also referred to as verification of down payment and closing costs, or verification of all cash, depending upon your type of offer, should be provided with the loan. You don't need to check anything on here because that is the industry standard. That is the way the contract is written. It's not as clear because the check boxes are after with the new format of the RPA, but nothing needs to be checked if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing here. Same thing with verification of loan application. It says it's attached to the offer, and then you are supposed to indicate which type. Pre-qualification, pre-approval. We generally are not told the difference between the two because that's between the buyer and the lender. I don't really care which one you check. I don't think most agents would. Technically, pre-approval is a little bit stronger. So if I'm writing an offer, I'm going to check pre-approval. Now that direct underwriting we were talking about, that's called fully underwritten pre-approval. Okay, so if you have a DU and you're submitting a DU, make sure you check this box. Don't just send the DU and check the wrong box. Because again, if you have a very savvy agent on the other side, I'm like, oh, the only one that wrote it right. I like this one, you know? And every little thing can help you or hurt you. All right. Contingencies, the shorter your contingencies are, generally the more attractive to a seller and listing agent. If you can waive any, even more attractive, but that is very risky. Okay, so a typical loan contingency, which means the buyer's lender is really certain that they're going to have full loan approval and they can actually obtain this loan, is typically able to be done in this market between 14 and 17 days. Okay. Do not write anything lower than 17 days unless you speak with your buyer's lender and they tell you that's okay. So here's one of the things that you can do that could be very risky. Although if you work with a solid loan professional, they're not going to allow you to do this unless they are very certain about the buyer's ability to obtain a loan. Is a buyer purchasing with a loan can purchase with no loan contingency protection and still close with a loan. What does this mean? This means that you need to talk to the buyer's lender and the buyers and make sure they're comfortable with this, and your buyer's lender is really going to weigh in on this. This means these people are financially a slam dunk. They've got a, they're probably under purchasing. They make W-2 income. They have stable income history. They're making a lot of money. It's not even if they're making a lot of money and it's very stable income, if they're self-employed, sometimes getting pre-approval for self-employed individuals, depending upon the way their companies are set up, can be more difficult to obtain, can be riskier. So you really want to make sure your buyer is working with the best loan professional possible. If you're going to employ any of these tricks, if it's your buyer's lender who's not responsive, I'm not as excited to bring this up that we can do this. And because I don't want to put my clients in a bad position, right? So if I don't trust their lender, if I think they don't know what they're doing, this is probably not one of the first things I'm recommending to my buyers. Okay. But it's a pretty attractive item if you can actually do it. Now, the second thing is appraisal. So we all know value is going up very quickly, right? Very quickly. So when we pull comps, generally our comps come out to a lower dollar amount than what something ends up under contract, right? Are you guys seeing this? Yeah, so I comp something out at 500,000, but it sells for 600. Yeah, that's 100% happening to me. And so I'm preparing my buyers for this ahead of time. Now, as values started increasing, at first this was very alarming to me, and I thought it was riskier to lift an appraisal contingency. So at first I wasn't as keen to do this. I have not had many problems with appraisal in this market, though. Most appraisers are on board with us. They know this. If I've received 20 offers on my listing, but it sold $150,000 higher than anything else comparable in the area for the last 6 months, the appraiser will take that into account, that I have 20 offers and 5 of them were, around this price. They will look at that. So I'm not seeing as many appraisal issues. I'm not as concerned about potentially, lifting a buyer's appraisal contingency. Now, however, if they're buying with a loan, there's going to be an appraisal no matter what. Can you have an appraisal without an appraisal contingency? Yes, absolutely. It just means that if the property doesn't appraise, the buyer is not legally protected to cancel the contract because the property didn't appraise for the contract price. So what does this mean? Well, this means that potentially the buyer could be held to coming in with more cash to make up the difference between the purchase price and the appraised value. So if something's under contract at $1 million, but comes in at $900,000 on the appraisal, the buyer may be required to bring in an additional $100,000. So you need to exercise really sound judgment and strong CMA skills here, comparative market analysis skills here, right? So if I talk to my buyer about this, they want to try this. If they've got an extra 20, 30 grand sitting around, maybe we can lift the appraisal contingency. I could even add some language on here that says, if property with lifting the appraisal contingency, if property does not appraise, buyer will cover a difference up to and cap the dollar amount as to how much more money they're willing to bring in, because they probably only have a certain amount of money or a certain amount of money they're comfortable doing that on. That's not to say that the buyer and seller can't renegotiate a price or something like that, but sometimes that's not the case at all. And I have no option. There's no chance my buyers are going to get their offer accepted unless I lift this, but I don't feel confident about it. Well, I will only entertain that if they are working with my #1 preferred lender. Okay. And my #1 preferred lender, I will say to him, I have a 10-day physical inspection contingency. I need you to make sure that the appraisal happens and comes back before the end of my 10-day physical inspection contingency. As an agent, I'm not really supposed to be doing this, but let's be real here. This is what happens, and this is what we need to do to get our offers accepted and to actually close sometimes. Okay. So that means that our lender has to be all over it. It also means that lender, in order to order the appraisal, they're going to need fees from the escrow company. Escrow companies don't like to do any work until they get buyer earnest money deposit funds wired to them. So I will call up my escrow officer if no, I can't. I will just hound them for it. I will just absolutely hound them for it. I have to do the assist, right? I have to assist the lender in getting the fees that they need so that he can actually order the appraisal, and likely in a rush, the buyer might have to pay a couple $100 extra to get this done quickly. That way, if it doesn't appraise, I can cancel under the physical inspection contingency. Okay. If I have a 7-day physical inspection contingency, that time frame becomes even tighter, right? So you have to kind of balance those out. If I have a 5, 6, 7-day physical investigation contingency, do I feel comfortable also lifting the appraisal? Probably not, right? These things all affect each other. So I'm not going to go in with no contingencies or, very limited contingencies and a super short physical inspection. I might even make an excuse up. I need to have a 10-day physical inspection contingency. I'm giving you everything else that you need. If I know that I'm a top contender, I'm not trying to negotiate this if I don't think I'm a top contender, because I'm going to be out of town. It's my fault, right? Because the only inspector I like is out of town. Our fault, right? Please work with me. A couple extra days. No big deal. I'll get it done. You might be able to do that. Might be able to swing it. Just be wary of lifting appraisal and loan at the same time and having a very short inspection contingency. Very risky. A lot of dominoes there. Got to have a very, very good lender involved. Let's see. Investigation of property. Oh, sorry, appraisal contingency. So if you don't have to lift the appraisal contingency, and by the way, I'm one of those listing agents, I don't ever make anyone lift an appraisal contingency. Why? Because I know they're going to do exactly what I just taught you to do. And I don't want to cancel escrow. I want to close escrow. Right? It doesn't help my seller for me to be so aggressive on terms. I set them up for a higher risk of cancellation. So I allow buyers to have appraisal contingencies on the listings that I have. Somewhere between 10 and 14 days would be considered industry standard in a seller's market. Maybe 14 to 17 in a buyer's market. Okay. The shorter you can be, again, the more attractive your offer looks. Okay. Let's see here. We already talked about investigation of property. So can anyone tell me what I say is pretty standard for a condo? What time frame is standard for investigation contingency on a condo? Yeah, 7 days. 7 days is very competitive, but on a condo, that's kind of the norm at this point. How about on a smaller or normal size or smaller single family? 10, exactly. And for a larger single family, 14 to 17, depending upon the size and luxury level of the home. If I'm inspecting a mega house with backup generators and aquariums and gardens that I have to get specialty inspectors for, I need more time.
So you say 10 to 14 days for
For a larger single family,
Townhome is also like 10 days.
townhome is like a condo, as close to 7 as you can.
and then 17 days for the
17 to 21 for an estate or mega house. Yeah. Yeah, or Brentwood, or Beverly Hills, or the Bird Streets.
Should we remove the inspection contingency after the appraisal contingency?
You should lift your inspection contingency when you're done with your inspections within the time frame that you promised you would. It should have nothing to do with before or after. The only time that you'd be concerned about that is if you were trying to hide, protection of one underneath the other.
Oh, okay.
Let's see. So some of the fees that the seller typically pays that, maybe a buyer wants to offer to make their offer more attractive. Some of the things I won't do is I won't say, oh, buyer should pay for the retrofitting or building report requirements. And that's because we don't know what they're going to be. An inspection has to take place by the City of LA retrofitter, licensed retrofitter, before we know what that dollar amount is. So I don't like having my buyers say they're going to pay for what I call blank check items. We don't know what they are. I'm not going to bind my buyer to them, and I advise them heavily not to. Now, if I absolutely have to, that's up to the buyer, right? If I don't think it's, it's not tangible, I'm going to explain that. And they're like, we don't care. And I'm like, okay, it could be $100 to $2,000, to a few $1,000s. And they say, I don't care. Okay, then we can go ahead and take on that cost. You can pay for things like NHD report, although I still wouldn't stipulate what company. Why, guys? It's a seller disclosure. Therefore, if I stipulate what company, I'm taking liability off the seller and putting it on buyer side or myself, particularly because I'm the one who specified the company. So we could pay for that. That's not that much money. That's 100 to 150, depending upon the company and exactly what how detailed that report is. Escrow and title in a seller's market. Who determines who is escrow and who is title?
Seller's choice.
Yeah. So seller's choice. So you can write seller's choice in your contract for both of those things. However, if you can get the actual name of the escrow and title company that the listing agent wants ahead of time before you write your offer, talking to them, your offer is that much, that much cleaner, that much prettier, that much better received. But I never want to see any agent in this market, unless you're writing on something that's been on the market for months, okay, or fallen out of escrow 3 times, don't even try to get your escrow and title. Anyone who tells you opposite, it's because they're escrow or title trying to get your business, but it's hurting your business. Our goal here is to get the offer accepted. That is the hardest thing in our market today, okay, and especially as newer agents, statistically, you're going to work with more buyers than sellers. That is just the statistical fact of it. My first couple years, I think I was 90% buyers because I met buyers at open houses and, sellers already have built-in relationships with agents most of the time, right? Yes.
So, writing something like, this escrow company or seller's preference over there is not a good thing.
No, it is not a good thing, and please don't do it. What did I do with my charger? Right. Let's see, let's talk about some other things that the seller typically pays for that the buyer could offer to pay for. They could offer to pay for transfer taxes, both city and county, although I don't advise that either. That's quite a bit of money. It is standard for the seller to pay those taxes. And that's not one of the easy things I recommend. My favorite thing to do is to have a buyer waive the seller purchase of home warranty policy. The cost is based on square footage of the home. And it generally ranges from about $5,000 or $500 to, about $1,200, unless you're getting into mega home status. So that's one of my favorite things, to advise the buyer, hey, let's waive seller purchase of home warranty. You can buy one yourself. For me, if it's a $3 million purchase, I will buy it for you for closing if that's what you like. I am happy to spend that money to get a $3 million sale under contract, right, and closed. So it's all a trade-off. I'm not offering to pay for it on a little bitty condo. I'm going to take them out to a nice dinner, but I'm not going to spend, maybe $600 on a little bitty condo where I'm not making that much. So keep that in mind as you advise things or offer to pay for things. And that's one of the only things as an agent I'll really offer to pay for up front if I need to. And again, it's all an evaluated risk assessment for me. I have the potential to make 75K here. Am I happy coughing at 1,200? 100% I am. I only have to pay that money if I close. So very comfortable with that. Let's see. Asking for items other than what is standardly included in the sale can make your offer less attractive and more complicated. Okay, so only include minor requests for, like if someone asking for furniture and things like that. Obviously you can't ask for staging furniture. If you're asking for the whole house of furniture, that's an agreement outside and you should expect to pay. But maybe there's one not built in, but entertainment center or something that fits a space perfect. It was custom built for that area and it's not included. Could you ask for that? Absolutely. Just keep in mind that the more complicated you make your offer, the more you ask for that's not standard, especially if you're not offering to pay for it, the less attractive that offer continues to become.
How does that work if a customer asks to, like, I want this house just the way it is, not to change to the way it's staged and everything?
So we will write an offer for the real estate. Well, first off, are they paying for the home cash or with a loan? If they're paying with a loan and they're asking for a bunch of furniture, the lender's not going to allow that. And that's because they're in the business of making a loan on real estate property, not on furniture. They're not furniture dealers. So it'd have to be two separate agreements. They're not contingent upon one another. Okay, so you'd come to an agreement as far as the furniture, what that consists of, what that cost is. That can be a simple agreement written up between buyer and seller. An attorney can handle it, whatever. It's separate from your real estate contract. If it's a couple of items, it's probably okay to be in your contract. It's a couple of items.
But otherwise, we do cash.
Cash, you can do whatever you want. Except, here's the thing, you still probably want a separate agreement because the higher your purchase price, the higher the buyer, now owners, property taxes are in perpetuity. So if you're adding 100,000, 200,000 on whatever to sales price, that's actually for furniture, you're going to pay property tax higher based on that higher number forever. So you wouldn't want to do that. You're going to want a separate agreement for the furniture. You don't want to add value, if it's significant to a purchase price that is taxed.
So how do you add it?
You don't add it. It is a separate agreement entirely. You've got a contract for furniture sale. You've got a contract for real estate purchase. They're not contingent upon one another. You know, as a real estate agent, when I have to do that, I play the rule of what does a good personal assistant do? I can provide recommendation, you know, referrals. I can pass along info, but I'm not writing this agreement for them because why? I'm a real estate agent. I am not an attorney, nor am I a furniture dealer. If they're really concerned about it, it's a high dollar amount, they should probably hire an attorney. If it's not a simple written thing that makes sense that both buyer and seller agree to, is probably fine.
But if it's thrown in, no.
Yeah,
no charge.
if there's no value, if the seller is just providing it, you can put that in the contract. Yeah. Again, though, if there's a loan, the buyer's lender might have an issue with that. So that can be a separate agreement, even if it's for no value.
Gotcha.
Let's see here. So that is pretty much it as far as the terms of the contract. My very last suggestion to you is something that is sometimes very well received and can result in escrow. Sometimes it's very poorly received. And before deciding if you want to do this, you should, I'm going to stop share. You should speak to the listing agent. It is called an escalation clause. What an escalation clause is it says, hey, seller, we are making our offer at this price. However, if anyone comes in at a higher price, we are willing to offer whatever dollar amount higher than that highest offer. So I can say 5,000, 10,000. Look, if it's $5,000, that doesn't make a big difference. I don't recommend exercising an escalation clause unless it's 10,000 or more. And the higher the sales price, the higher that small increment should be. So if I'm writing on a $5 million home, I don't want to see less than like 25,000 higher there. Because once you get into those higher prices, $25,000 doesn't really make that much of a difference, okay? I know it sounds like a lot, but it doesn't really make that much of a difference, especially when it's so cheap to borrow money. So an escalation clause says, you know, hey, we're offering you 1 million, but if someone comes in higher, we will pay whatever dollar amount, $10,000 higher than that better or that higher competing offer. Now, I actually have some language I'm going to share with you that I wrote, and this language takes it a step farther. I don't like to use an escalation clause unless it has a cap. And that means maybe my clients were willing to, you know, pay 10,000 over a higher offer, but we were offering $1 million. I don't want to bind them to paying, if someone came in at 1.5, paying 1.510, right? I don't want to do that. So I put a cap on mine. My clients offer you $1 million. However, if there's a higher competing offer, they will pay $10,000 higher than that dollar amount, up to 1.2. Provided the listing agent gives us a copy of the offer, any addenda and counter offers of that higher competing offer. So I'm going to give you the actual language for that right now. I have a template. Let me pull it out of my email real quick and I'll put it in the chat box for everyone and I will read it out a couple of times. And if you were in this class and you ask me for this, again, I'm going to be mad at you. And everybody always asks me for this. And only when I'm trying to eat dinner or go to sleep or I'm drunk. So, so please write it down. Okay, so purchase price to be blank dollars. Can I make this bigger for you guys somehow? Now I know how I can make this bigger for you guys in the office here. Is that good?
Yeah.
Those of you at home can see it on the chat box. And those of you here, I've got it up on the screen. Purchase price to be blank dollars. In the event that there is a higher competing offer, buyers agree to increase their offer in the amount of blank dollars over that competing offer with a maximum purchase price of blank dollars. If this escalation clause is exercised, Seller shall provide buyers with a copy of the RPA, all addenda, and any counter offers of higher competing offer. Does that make sense? That covers all your bases. I worked on this escalation clause language and I tweaked it over a period of 10 years. I cannot come up with better. This is my golden clause. Again, not all agents like escalation clauses. So you should check before you advise that your buyers write one of these, that the listing agent and sellers are open to receiving an offer or counter offer with an escalation clause. Okay, some people think it's cheating. Some people have a bad experience with it. You have some fickle buyers who are like, oh, we won using our escalation clause. We have to pay what? Never mind. So it's not always received the best. I don't mind it.
Well, how would you know that that agent is being loyal and being true to what they say?
You don't know, but agents should be being true. So I'm not going to name any names here, but I heard there was an instructor in this office that was telling new agents to go ahead and write a higher price than a buyer ever intended paying. That is not okay. That is fraud. If it sounds funny, it is funny, okay? And there's some fraud that nobody knows about or cares about that we can get away with. It's not, you know, like there's some gray area, right? There's some movement area in some of the contract terms that we write. But I would never tell my clients, hey, I know you only want to pay 1.1 for this property, but we should write 1.3. I'll get it down in inspections. Why? All offers should be made with the intention of actually paying that price unless something unknown comes up and it's negotiated. Okay, so you don't know that an agent is being sincere. So this leads back this question about, you know, how do you know a buyer's agent is being sincere with this this escalation clause offer? Well, it goes back to that working the listing agent, getting them to trust you, to like you, being an honest agent, being a good agent, all of the little tricks I told you, writing a strong offer that's accurate and correctly written, all of that is going to lead to the listing agent automatically thinking you are an agent who knows what you're doing, that has control of the client, that is more likely to actually mean what they say and do, you know, get it done. Right? Everybody have this language?
I'm still writing.
You're still writing it? Okay. Does anyone have any questions? Yes, Bernard.
If you have two clients and at the same time, they want to buy something the same price range and at the same region and they know each other. And even the timing started before, you know that in May, they will be pushing the button. So I can't represent both of them.
Yes, you can.
I can?
Yes, you can. Just disclose it to them and be objective, fair, and honest.
So without telling each
You
of
should tell them.
Like,
This happens to me often because I'll sit open houses and I'll pick up buyers who are looking at the same types of property. So I will have buyers who are competing buyers, 100%. I just make sure it's okay with them. If it's not okay with them, I go to an agent I really like and I ask them, I'm not going to give them a referral fee, but I'll have that other agent represent them just during the offer process.
so
And then if they end up under contract, transfer that back to me and I'll pay them.
okay.
Yeah.
So the same house, two clients, I can give
Yep.
two offers.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, I saw another hand somewhere. Yes.
Experience with like, the sale being contingent on sale of buyers properties.
Yeah.
So competitive.
This is very confusing because what are those offers called? They're called contingent offers. We have tons of contingencies in our offers. Great. So yeah, that's a contingent offer. I don't have tons of experience with it because right now it is a seller's market. And why, if I'm a seller, would I accept an offer that is contingent upon that buyer selling their home and closing it, when I could just sell it to one of my other 25 interested buyers who's ready to purchase now? There's not another domino there. So yes, I do. I'm familiar with it. I've done it. It's not common now because those offers are not considered very strong. So in this market, that is going to be a very difficult task. If you're dealing with a buyer who needs to sell in order to buy, I would highly recommend having them put their home on the market and asking for a lease back period. And getting prepared to go into temporary housing if they need to, because when they're a buyer, it's going to be very competitive for them anyhow, even when they don't have a contingent offer.
So where
Yes.
does this clause go?
Where does that clause go?
Yeah.
It would go under additional terms, or if you can't fit it there, you could put it on in what? Addendum,
Okay.
an addendum. Any more questions, guys?
Do you upload this offer to?
I can't hear you.
Do you upload this offer into DocuSign and then send it from there, or?
How do you get the offer signed? Yeah, using DocuSign. There's a plugin through Carforms with DocuSign that will pre-place signature lines and dates for you, but it's not always accurate and guaranteed it's going to miss the liquidated damages and arbitration initial clauses and the paragraphs in the RPA. So as a newer agent, even though it takes longer, I highly recommend you upload documents into DocuSign and hand place signature fields, signature and date fields, because it will be right if you do it that way. Your signature lines also, especially if you're writing with entity buyers or sellers, the signature lines are not going to show up right through the plugin. So if I am a seller and I own my property in trust, the name of my trust is 123 ABC. If I use the Zip Forms plugin with DocuSign, my signature line, the actual signature will say 123 ABC Trust. That's not legitimate. Christen Tull is a trustee of 123 ABC Trust. Therefore, Christen Tull has to be the signature. Does that make sense? So I highly recommend, until you are very confident in what you're doing and what needs to be done as far as signature lines and placements of fields and what the little glitches are in that plugin, I highly, highly encourage you to use DocuSign by hand. Any other questions? Yes.
So can you please go over waiving the seller's purchase home warranty? What's that?
A home warranty policy is a 1-year policy that is standard for the seller to pay for the buyer through the close of escrow. And home warranties can cover a lot or a little bit. There used to be a bunch of brochures up here. There might still be for home warranty companies. Yeah, I see one right there. You can talk to a home warranty rep specifically about what the different types of home warranty coverages are.
So that's obligated in California?
No, it's not obligated. It's just standard.
That the seller.
It's
buys.
standard that the seller pays for it, even in seller's market. Yeah. Any questions at home? Okay, any more questions in the classroom? Nope. Have a fantastic week, guys. It's nice to see you. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you
You're
so much.
welcome. Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Awesome.